did not set out to watch 3 movies about jazz. It just happened. So,
that kind of chaos doesn't lines up in the universe. Who are you trying to kid?
it's weird, man, because like I'll watch a movie with somebody in it, and then that person will be like a background character in like the next 3 movies I watch. It's bizarre, man.
So what?
Notice I watched that new Soul movie on Disney.
Yeah.
That was pretty good, and it's about a jazz pianist that dies before he gets his shot at life. Then I watched that movie Whiplash. Have you guys seen that?
I've never seen nor heard about this.
Okay, it's J.K. Simmons, otherwise known as what's his name?
Oh my God.
J. Jonah Jameson. So he is a teacher at a college for music, and he teaches the jazz, but professor, whatever. And he is just a complete and total asshole. But it's about one of the kids is a jazz drummer in his class. And then I watched a movie that Matt will never, ever watch in his lifetime.
You named 2 already.
La La Land, which is a musical about a jazz pianist and a actress.
Did you owe somebody some money or something?
No. Soul is a great movie. I mean, all 3 of them are great movies, but you have to be into that sort of thing. J.K. Simmons won an award for it.
Nice. Yeah, I do want to see Soul. I remember seeing La La Land. I liked it for what it was. It wasn't bad. It's a musical, so that your mileage may vary. But no, I do really, really want to see Soul, and I'd never heard of this other film, but now I'm gonna have to go look it up. I'm kind of low key into jazz. It's kind of what I listen to when I need to study, and I don't want to listen to stuff with words, so I'll listen to just instrumental jazz. There's this because I'm old, I still use Pandora, and so I have a Pandora station, which is
I use Pandora as well.
I love it, man. I have no need for Spotify, but
I've spent so much time setting up my Pandora. I have no interest in going and setting up a new thing.
Right. But there's this, and I don't know if you want to call it like lo-fi hip hop beats, or I mean, I think it's just jazz. It's just a new form, but it's kind of new age jazz. And there's just this group called Grammatic, or this whatever he is called Grammatic, Gramatik. And so I set up a station around his stuff, and yeah, it's just kind of like new age, erratic, changes beats, has different time signatures every couple of seconds. Really cool, like hip hop inspired jazz.
I mean, there's actually a whole segment about that in La La Land, about how people are no longer listening to jazz. It's just something you have on while you're doing other things.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I enjoy it. Like it does help you take it out. But you know what else I enjoy?
Talking about comics?
Talking about comics, specifically with you guys on Sunday mornings here and now. Hey everybody, this is the final Southern Fried Geekery podcast of 2020. Not forever, just of this shitty, terrible, no good, ready to go bye year. I am, as always, and like I said last time, 2020, Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And it is good as always to be back with you as we are in this kind of midland between Christmas, as we like to call it, and New Year's. We hope everybody had a good and safe holiday. We would love to know how your gift giving and gift receiving was, and you can come over to our Facebook group or our Instagram page or our Twitter page. And check those things out. We're at SFG Podcast on the Insta and the Twits. And we, like I said, just hit the little search bar and look up Southern Fried Geekery Podcast and join our online group. And if you're already there and you're listening to this, post some pics. Show me what you got. We want to see it. We want to know how you
show us what you got.
Right? because it's always fun. Like that's that's not the reason for the season, so to speak, which I think is just, the reason is to just be better. It's to give, not receive, but receiving is also really fun. In multiple contexts, really. But that's neither here nor there. I digress. So what did you guys get any reading done? I know it's always hard with like this season, we stay busy, but did y'all get any reading done this week?
I did.
I got a little done.
Yeah, it was mostly it was just a short stack of comics that I picked up from the store more than anything. Matt, what did you read, bud?
So my stack this week was really light, but three things that I did get through, and I better mention this one because I know Craig will never mention it. DC's Batman Annual number 5. This was
you are correct.
Yeah. So this issue spent its entirety exploring the origin story or the background of Clown Killer, the new character introduced by James Tynion. And the story was by him and James Stokoe. Really fun read for an origin story, especially. Sometimes those can be kind of, for me personally, kind of drag and be rather uninteresting. Artwork of James Stokoe had a lot to do with this story being easier to read. His artwork is really good, really unique, very exciting. And it was a fun read. It fit, it just goes into the background and the details of what's the motivations behind this character. It's interesting they made such a strong point about violent video games in this book. I'm assuming there's like some eye rolls going on about that. And there was one new character also introduced called Big Henry. I want to see more Big Henry stories.
Yes.
Though that's a character I'd like to see more of. So yeah, that was a fun read. Also, I read from Image Comics, Scumbag number 3. Now this is the Rick Remender story. The artwork on this issue was actually done by Eric Powell.
Oh, nice.
The colorist was Moreno Denisino. This was fun, and it was the Eric Powell's artwork sure elevated the energy in this story. That's the big stand I took away from this one. This issue is the distinct difference that what he brings to the table versus the other two issues. Other two issues obviously being good, but his just have a much bigger animated energy to them. And then number 3, the book that I was the most excited about this week, lived up to the hype for me, from Marvel, King Size Conan number 1, 50 Years of Conan at the Marvel Universe. I loved this book. All these, and it's just an anthology of all these different creative teams. Chris Claremont's story was great. He did a great job in this one. I was, really curious to see how he would write a Conan story, and he killed it. Roy Thomas has still got it. Roy Thomas basically he went back and did a prelude to the very first Conan story he ever wrote. So that was fun. Kevin Eastman's story, I really dug Kevin Eastman's story. Of course, I love his artwork. Ever since I was really, really young, and I saw the first Ninja Turtles book. But anyway, I thought this was a great book. I really loved it. Just a standalone anthology with all these different creative teams. And that's my short stack.
Nice.
Awesome. I read 3 books that all shared one thing in common. They were all horror comics for some reason.
I was gonna say they were about jazz.
Yes. And it was, again, coincidental. It was the universe just lining up that way. I read Redneck number 29 by Image Comics by Donny Cates and Lissandro Athera and Dee Cunniffe, I think is how you say her name. Mm-hmm. This just continues on to be a great, not only horror story, but delving deep into vampire mythology. I've been enjoying it. I think it's some of Donny Cates' best work. I know he's getting lots of praise for what he's doing at Marvel, but redneck is where it's at for me. I also read Sea of Sorrows #2, IDW by Rick Dueck and Alex Cormack. This book continues to intrigue me with the searching for the gold and the wreckage, with the mermaids and people dying on the ship. Just a good horror story. And then lastly, I read Something is Killing the Children #13 by Tynan and Deladera. I believe it's an Image book. I forgot to write it down, to be honest. And this book just continues to be a book that I can't recommend enough. It's headed toward its finale.
I think that's Boom.
But is it Boom? It very likely could be.
Don't quote me on that.
So, yeah. I'm sorry I didn't write it down. I don't know why I didn't, but
no, it's okay.
At any rate, it's a great book, and you should pick it up and be reading it.
Nice.
I think it can't have more than a couple of more issues, to be honest. But yeah, good book. Read it, pick it up, enjoy it.
All right. So before I roll into my short stack, I want to. I didn't put King Conan on my list because I knew that Matt was going to talk about it. But also, it somebody at Marvel can't do math because Conan hadn't been at Marvel for 50 years. It might have been 50 years ago, but they need to fix that shit. Our buddy Vince B went on an amazing rant over on 11 O'Clock Comics podcast about that because he ain't been at the Marvel camp for 50 years. He started, but he took a break. But Matt also stole my first book and gave it beautiful accolades, and that is Batman Annual #5. So just what Matt said with the added caveat of anytime you give me a Leslie Tompkins story, I'm generally pretty happy. I think she's a great character. I don't particularly give a flying shit about this totally not Damian Wayne character that they've invented and called Clown Hunter, but the story was amazing. And yeah, you can't give me enough of Stokoe's art. It looks insane, like the way that he lays out the city and the characters. Like I love his style. And it was violent and yes, more slightly criminal intent lumberjack with a heart would be great. Next on my list is a book. The art is kind of similar to what Stokoe gave us. It's kind of in that same style. You know, there's a couple of folks who work in that style. Raphael Grandpa comes to mind, but this one is from an Image, and it's called Post Americana. Written by Steve Scrochy, drawn by Steve Scrochy, with the colors by Dave Stewart, and phonographics. This book was a lot of fun. If you missed out on this, and like I said, I didn't even know it was a thing. I kind of just saw it on the shelf. It's if you're a fan of like early Garth Ennis, and who's not, or even early Warren Ellis, and again, I repeat myself, who's not. This book is a irreverent buddy comedy set in the post-apocalypse wasteland of what used to be America. Well, the bigwigs all sequestered themselves in a bubble after the nuclear fallout, but they have to get out and escape. It's very kind of borderline satirical, but in a funny way. Delivered by Steve Scrochy. It's just good stuff. There are cannibal chickens. Just to throw that out there if you need more enticing. Also a warlord named FF, and the FF stands for flying fuck. And he flies around and he blasts people. It's funny. And then last but certainly not least is another horror book, tapping into some Craig here. But it's a little bittersweet. It's not a book I was looking forward to, even though it's a book that I love. And that's because it's Gideon Falls #27, which is the final issue. At least as we know it. It ends this story, and I've been a big fan of this story. I love Andre Sorrentino's art. Jeff Lemire, I'm always gonna go to the mat for that guy. And again, just like the last book, this one had colors by Dave Stewart, who is just a champion colorist. This book is multiversal. It's suspenseful. It looks at things that it's kind of the Black Mirror concept a little bit. It was really good. Now that it's done, at some point I've got to sit down and do a complete reread. just because this thing is like Shrek's onion. There's layers. You got to get through them to figure out what's going on. You know, characters exist in some form on different planes, and it's all centered around this idea of a black barn, which is really just the way for kind of a elder god esque type thing to break through and devour the multiverse. But you know, as he is wont to do, Jeff Lemire really crafted this thing, and he took his time with it to develop it and let it blossom or fester or whatever you want to call it. But if you've not read this series, now that it's over, it's a good time to start watching out for that giant collected edition and put this on your shelf because it's good stuff. So that's my 3.
Awesome.
Well, all right. So as we roll through that, I know there's at least one more book that we all read this week, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I kind of did. It's an image book. As you know, we like to dig through sometimes. Last week was a light week, like the guy said. There wasn't a lot new on the shelves, but Craig saw this and snagged it, and I'm guessing this was one of those books that the cover kind of grabbed you and drew your eye to it, right, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of a Matt and Craig decision. We were at the local comic book store and we were looking, and there just wasn't a whole lot of new arcs or, you know, really good books to jump in on. And so this one jumped out at us. I think it came out actually a week or 2 ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like, you know, really what jumped out at me was the fact that it was Dan Waters writing it.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed what he's done on Coffin Bound. So that's what made me jump all over this book.
Nice. Well, okay. Well, without burying the lead, the book is none other than Homesick Pilots from the Image Comics. Like Craig said, it is Dan Waters doing the writing on it. Casper Wingard, which is an amazing name, doing the art on it, with Adita Bidikar as the letters. And let's see, it doesn't say that I can tell who did the cover, but I'm guessing it was probably Casper Wingard because it's awesome. And so before we jump into the book, what did you guys think about it? How did you, just the short and narrow of it, what'd you guys think?
I enjoyed the hell out of this book.
Nice.
But yeah, I didn't. I mean, this is a genre that I don't really get into, so I mean, it was well done. I mean, I've got nothing to knock as far as the delivery and the quality of the book. It's just a genre that I don't really get into all that much.
Okay, that's fair. Kind of in the same boat. Not necessarily that this is not a genre that I don't dig, because you know, it's, without saying what it is, I've read a few things like this, and I think that may be the thing with me is I've read a few things like this, and it's, like you said, really well crafted, really great example of something that I feel like, you know, I kind of have been here before, but I really enjoyed coming back to it. It was you know, it was fun after, you know, you miss it for a little bit, get a nice palate cleanser, and then come back. It's solid. So what this book is, and part of the reason I think Craig is going to really, you know, when I read this, I thought he would really enjoy it because it takes place in Southern California. The book opens up in the early 90s, and they're in a little SoCo town. And, you know, like kids in a little SoCo town are wont to do, they've formed cliques and bands, and they're all trying to be, you know, the next big punk rock, or pop punk, I should say, superstars, and doing what they want to do. And so you've got this group of kids, and they have indeed formed a little garage band, and it's called the Homesick Pilots. And you know, like all good stories and like all good band origin stories, you kind of have to have what do you call it? You know, not an enemy, so to say, but you've got to have another band that you're at odds with. You've got to have a foil to your rise to fame, and they do as well. The Homesick Pilots, there's another band that they always kind of feel like they're playing little brother to or second fiddle to, can't quite get it right, and those are the Nuclear Bastards. The Nuclear Bastards are another 3-piece little punk band, but they don't have whatever it is. You know, the Homesick Pilots, they think they're derivative, and they're just, you know, rock by numbers, saying some bullshit. But somehow, even though that there's no heart to what they're doing, they continue to get the the local punk scene kids riled up. They do things like, play a punk show in an abandoned bowling alley, which by definition is kind of just a cool idea for high school kids. And so even though they're not breaking new ground or doing anything, just the homesick pilots have no respect for the nuclear bastards' artistic endeavors or lack thereof. But they got to admit they're really bringing folks out. So they're looking for a way to one up the nuclear bastards. What can we these dudes just they just had a great show. They played an abandoned bowling alley. The cops came, everybody had fun, like running away from the cops. Somebody smashed a 40, yelled scatter, very Tom Mulaney kind of thing. And so they're trying to figure out how do we get that, like how do we get the people to our shows. And the one of the band members, a young woman, who I think that's also pretty cool, is that they all of these bands are very they're mixed. They all have chicks, they all have dudes. There's people of different races, different cultures, all taking part of this. And so this young girl, her name's Amita, and she's apparently relatively new to the area. She has this notion, and she's like, guys, no, I've got it. You remember that story you told me last week about this creepy house on the haunted hill that is a murder house? It's the house that kills people. That's what we do. We go play a gig in that place. And the other folks in the band are like, yeah, not so sure. Like, number one, it's a ghost story. Like, none of us actually believe in haunted houses, kind of as they flex their chest and puff out and everything, because they're too old and too smart for that. But the truth is they're all actually scared shitless of this house. And there's reasons why. Like, not too long before this book kicks off, apparently some young poor dude, poor bastard, got stuck in the house, and the cops found him. Looked like he'd starved to death, or so the urban legend goes. Of course, there's and they found claw marks by the door as he was trying to claw his way out. And so all of them, even though they're trying to act like they're above it, all kind of believe this local urban legend, this local folk story about the house being haunted. And so they're all trying to back out of it. But she's not feeling it. So as they kind of break up and go their own way, Amita, who is a character who has had some trouble in the past, like like I said, she is apparently relatively new to the area, but she's in a foster home. Her parents are a mix of dead and gone, and there's rumors that she may have been involved in that, spreading among the high school kids. There's this whole, like I said, it's very cliquish rumor mill. Anyway, she wants to check out the house, and so she goes off. And as they're all breaking up to go to their respective houses, she's not done with the night yet. She sneaks up to this house, and then nobody kind of hears from her again for a day or two. And her bandmates are looking for her, and they know that she was talking about it, so they also sneak up to this haunted murder house on the hill, and break in. But it wouldn't be a good kind of Scooby-Doo mystery story if the bad guys weren't following them, and that's what kind of takes place here. Is those nuclear bastards, those derivative fucks, they have followed two of the three of the homesick pilots to this house. And there's this really great double page spread where the homesick pilots, not having the wherewithal to check all the doors and windows, hoist themselves up to the second story and break into the house that way, in the front of the house, while the nuclear bastards came from the back of the house, find kind of an unlocked window, sneak in. And there's this great thing where they track them all through the house until they meet in the middle, which is this room on the second floor, and have this whole moment of, if it was West Side Story, they would have been snapping at each other. But it's this show off, right? And they're going to figure they're heading each other off. Each one of the dudes, bravado kicks in. The one guy totally is going to just pull a switchblade and steal the other guy's weed, but the one dude's not having it. And then something happens. The house starts to shift, and things start to break up. There's an energy, and the energy kind of surrounds and formulates itself into a visage of Amita. And they're very confused about what this house has done to Amita as it starts to literally break them up. and expel them. It pushes them out with kind of a wave of what looks to be blood, kicks them out. And from there, you really see it goes back to the beginning of the story where this house, it's not a house full of ghosts, it's a house that is ghosts. And the house literally begins to rise up and take a kind of a humanoid shape, and it goes walking through the town, kind of destroying things. And then there's a book into the story where it takes you to a different time and a different place. There's a young girl who's talking about finding this horseshoe made of iron, and it's supposed to be lucky because it keeps out spirits. And it was found at this old abandoned house in Southern California. And she's showing it off to her dude, and they're kind of like a condo, who's, apparently getting ready for sexy times because he's standing there in his underwear. But she's just like, hey, this is the thing that I found. It's cool. It's really nothing, but it's just a cool story. And then something knocks on a door, and it's a very ghostly looking young woman, and she wants her horseshoe back. And that's where the story is going to take off from. It's like I said, it goes from being kind of a little SoCo punk rock, get the gang together band story to being not necessarily a ghost story, but a ghost house story. And we've seen ghost house stories before, right? And so this is kind of a good example of that. I thought it was, I'm with you guys. I thought it was really well put together. I think it's a neat concept. I don't know that I'm personally going to keep carrying on through the story. Like it didn't stand out to me. It didn't grab me and show me that it was anything different per se, but it's a really, really well-written example of what this genre can do. But I know Craig really, really enjoyed it. So I want to turn things over to him and let him kind of deep dive into it.
Well, so for me, I trust Dan Waters based on Coffin Bound.
Mm-hmm.
And this book, to me, it's both a setup book and a good story on its own. It gives you a couple of pages of setup, but it's not overly delving into it, if that makes sense.
Right.
And, it really, I love this genre to begin with. So I love horror. I love ghost stories. And so it falls right into my wheelhouse of books that I'm going to like. I love the art in this book. It was claustrophobic when it needed to be. It was open when it needed to be. The colors were great. They fit what was happening in the book very, very well. And, I don't know what you want me, by deep dive, but,
well, no, by
Craig's deep dives are kind of shallow.
Yeah. I'm a little shallow, Caleb. No, I'm kidding. It's, it just was a book that intrigued me. It's a book that I will sign up for. I'm kind of surprised I missed it to begin with and had to find it on the shelf. So it's something I will definitely be signing up for to read.
Well, by deep dive, more so what I like when I was reading this, the Southern California of it all, it made me think about you, because I mean, you and I have, we've had those conversations in the past about, kind of growing up out there, getting a feel for what it was, being in like,
but I didn't grow up in an orphanage. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I mean, like you've got a brother who's kind of an old punk rock dude.
Yeah, I'm totally messing with you, Caleb.
And those vibes.
It captures. I had left before the 90s, but it definitely has that 80s feel to the skate scene, the punk scene. I feel like the other band, what was it? The Nuclear Band. They were kind of like the rich suburbanites that really didn't fit into the punk scene, but were trying to force themselves into it. The Socias, if you please.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had, the other group that was more of what you would think of as being the traditional punk lifestyle. you know, but it certainly captured the vibe of the music scene in the 80s. You know, I don't know what it was like in the 90s in Los Angeles, but you certainly get that feel of the 80s. And then, you know, that's just a kind of a front to who these kids are. So you kind of get a feeling of who they are as they head into the haunted house. And it really has more of an outsider's vibe to me
I kind of
than
picked
it
up.
did
Yeah.
than it did a punk vibe, because, you know, you have the kid runs off, doesn't want to go home, doesn't want to be yelled at by her foster parents, so she's just going to go spend the night in the haunted house.
Right.
You know, and that's when shit goes bad. So it kind of, the first half of it to me had a very outsider's vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into kind of a poltergeist vibe.
Yeah. For my money, the first half of the story, like I said, you know, I'm never not down for a ghost story or a ghost house story. I thought it was, the way that it was laid out in the beginning, the opening of it was kind of weird. You know, in fact, there was this kind of Scotty Young, Jorge Corona vibe to like the giant monster, like where literally the house turns into a giant walking behemoth and destroys the little small town. And then for it to go from that to being a lot smaller, and where it left off at the end of the book, you know, where it's the young girl who appears ghastly. I don't know, like that, that part didn't click for me. But the middle of the book, the battle of the bands, so to speak, all of that, I would rather have just, for me, and maybe it's just kind of the mood I'm in, have stayed in that world. Like it had a very like kind of Love and Rockets vibe to it. And you know, not I don't think it's fair to compare it to Love and Rockets, because the Hernandez brothers are the Hernandez brothers. Like there's a reason those two figures are iconic, and you know, have produced some of the most amazing books in sequential canon. But like it was there, like all of those elements were there. And I just kind of wanted to stay with that for a little bit instead of going off into the ghost story. But that's not what the story is.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, that story
you wanted to read a
class.
different comic book.
Yeah, that story would be Deadly Class that you're wanting to read.
Yeah. So what about you, Matt? What were your kind of takeaways from this, buddy?
I mean, I really don't have anything extra to add to it. You know, I said I thought it was well executed. I thought it was a good narrative. The artwork was done really well. It's just a genre that as a whole, doesn't do a whole lot for me. It's not very common for me to get into a supernatural ghost story. I just don't. That's just a genre I don't get into. And that crosses all media, whether it be TV or movies or books. Ghost stories just don't do it for me.
Yeah. Before we move on, though, I do want to throw, you know, one compliment out there, and that's more so to the coloring of this book. Like there's this vibrant pink that is used throughout the entire series, to really, you know, it's when the moment is kind of at its peak, you know, and the moment is in air quotes. And you get the background in these pink washes, and then there's a fight scene towards the end of the book, where it actually becomes a little monochromatic. The story in and of itself in its entirety is not monochromatic, but there's this fight scene in the house to where the only color used in any of the panels in the 2 pages are pink. Everybody else is washed out in gray. I thought that was excellent, because even there's blood spill in this scene, and even the blood is being like splattered in this really vibrant, like hot pink. And I thought that was a really, really cool way to really set the mood, because it's not horror by itself, right? Like it is a very horrific moment. You know, anytime you're dealing with just kind of monochromatic things, that's a great way to do horror. I mean, some of the greats have done that with Frank Miller, but a lot of times you do it with, like, you know, blood reds or yellows, or kind of these primary colors. they chose to go with this really young kind of kind of post punk color. And I remember seeing, because I grew up in the 90s, and I remember seeing these bands that were, I did not necessarily listen to a lot of them, and I think Matt probably loathes the fact that they exist, but you have bands like Good Charlotte, that
Blink-182.
Blink-182 a little bit, but yeah, these kind of they weren't necessarily punk rock, they were pop rock, but they used like this exact color. I remember seeing, going to the mall and seeing kids with the cutoff jackets with like this color pink, like dudes, like hypo masculine, always looking for a mosh pit at a punk show dudes would wear a lot of pink, just, especially in a place like Arkansas where they're trying to do this, fuck you, I won't live up to your weird.
I won't do what you want.
Well, no, they weren't quite as cool
to.
as Rage Against the Machine, but yeah. So I think the color and the tone of pink that they used really worked for what they were trying to pull off with this. And on some level, there's a Miami Vice vibe anytime you see palm trees wrapped up in pink. And I don't know. I thought it was well done. The colors to me were the standout.
Wrong coast, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know it's the wrong coast, but it's still it's that same air. You can taste the salt in the air whenever you see that, whether it's in California or in Florida. So
yeah, I mean, when you see the palm trees, it's definitely they're going to, for me, you have the desert or the beach, because you have, Palm Oaks and, all of these places throughout Palm Springs and places like this, and in California out in the desert.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely evokes a certain response on as to where it is, and it's going to put you right in the place. It's going to be on one of the two coasts for sure.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminded me of, I had to keep reminding myself this was an Image book and not an Aftershock book, and I think I need to go do some Google sleuthing, but I feel like I remember seeing Wingard on an Aftershock book at one point. He's got a very Aftershock vibe to his art. And
or even Doom.
Yeah. And I don't know that there's a quote unquote style for Image these days. And because you can anybody can do anything they want at that publisher. But this really felt like it was, and I think people who have read Aftershock, hopefully they know what I mean when I say that. But Aftershock art does have a particular, I don't know what you call it. There's a style that kind of goes with that book, that publisher. A little digital, little heavy, rounded, not hyper detailed, very, very much not photorealistic. And that's what he's going for. Kind of
Either way, it worked for the book.
Yeah,
kind of my opinion.
Archie.
Okay. I mean, if that's where you want to go with it, I didn't get an Archie vibe at all.
No, modern Archie, modern, not old school Archie Digest, like new age Mark Waid Archie.
Maybe it's the color palette that's not giving me that vibe. I don't know.
Oh, could be. But I think folks are going to like this book. I think if you pick this book up, it's well worth your time, well worth the read. And I'm glad we read it.
If you like any of the 3 books I picked in my short stack, you're going to like this book.
You are indeed. So go checketh this outeth.
Sorry, I wasn't more prepared for a deep dive there.
Oh, dude, you fine. Went great. I mean, that's what I mean. Like I said, I was just, you're the, out of the, and I could be, maybe Matt has just like an experience that I don't know about, but I feel like you're the Southern California guy out of the 3 of us.
Well, I guess I would be.
Matt feels like he might be more Bay Area.
I've seen it on the TV.
I've driven through. So
wait, well, a little hint, the Bay Area is still Southern California.
Is it?
Yeah. It's only about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles.
San Francisco?
Yeah, maybe 2 hours.
Okay. Some reason
I'm sorry. In California terms, it would be about 120 miles.
Gotcha.
They don't give distance by time.
And nobody would go anywhere.
Yeah.
Some reason I thought San Francisco was way north or more north than that.
It's more of like in the central section of California, but it's still considered Southern California.
Okay.
My sister sent me a message one time, kind of a funny story about the way we tell distance here versus there. Mm-hmm. Wanted to know how far it was to, I think she wanted to know from Little Rock to Mena. And I gave her, about 4 hours. And she goes, I didn't ask you how long it would take you to get there.
Well, I mean, you can't really judge it. I'm assuming there you can't judge it by that because the freeway is always going to be clogged up.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not going anywhere. So
yeah, pretty much.
No, I had a fun time reading this. I got to read it yesterday. Sat down and had a little post-Christmas break, a little time to myself, because I don't know about you guys, but even in the midst of the craziness and the pandemic, Christmas was still difficult to find like quiet time to sit down and read. Like there was always either phone calls or things happening or places and people and wanting to like drive by and wave at you. So I had a tough time breaking away and getting reading time in.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with time to read. It was more of the shallowness of my stack, if anything.
Yeah. Well, you had all those movies to watch.
You got to watch my jazz movies.
Did you guys have a good Christmas though? I should have said that in the beginning. I should have asked that question. I
had a very, very quiet Christmas. We did a Zoom call with the kids.
Yeah.
Just because, well, I mean, COVID, there's no reason to expose or to put that risk out there. So,
right.
We did a Zoom call with the kids, which was nice. Made my wife cry about 5 times, I think. But it was a quiet, nice day.
It's good to see the family. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, it was nice. It was easy, quiet. We didn't do any Zoom calls. Well, no, that's not true. We did a couple of Zoom calls earlier in the day, but yeah, so it was one of the better Christmas. Actually, even though all things considered, it was one of the better Christmases I've had in years.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's good.
There you go.
My mother and my grandmama wanted some ribs, so I smoked 2 racks of ribs, loaded them up, drove them, did a drive-by, dropped them off, let them be enjoyed, stayed safely away from everyone, and then drove away. And that was my Christmas. Came home, the hubs, being a nurse, had to work, so I had kind of a quiet Christmas day. Smoked some brisket because why not? It was just me and my grill. Some people have them in their grill. I got me and my grill. Smoked some brisket, enjoyed it, got really full. I'm going to need to lose about 50 pounds over New Year's. But, anytime we talk about Christmas, and, kind of like I opened up with this, the next logical question is, did you guys get anything cool for Christmas?
I certainly did. I bet Craig didn't.
No, we didn't. We're kind of waiting to have our Christmas, to be quite honest, until we can be around all the kids. We're going to do our Christmas here in a few months once we've had some chance to have some vaccines and stuff.
Nice.
So, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I got a new Padres jersey and things like that. But, it was just a nice, quiet Christmas.
Badass. What are those cool things that you got, Matt?
A couple of standouts. I got something I didn't even know existed. I got a pound of espresso roasted coffee that had been aged in a bourbon barrel for 9 years.
Nice.
I didn't know that was a thing.
No.
So you open up this coffee and it smells like bourbon. And it's like this amazing flavor combination. So that was complete shocker. I didn't know those things existed. It's one of those things. It's like, oh my, it's so nice. It's like I'm afraid to drink it almost. I'm like, oh, I got to be very careful. So that was a big deal. And second to that, I got a very nice show off edition. It's a roughly leather bound edition of Frank Herbert's Dune. I don't think I've ever mentioned that on the show before, but I'm a big fan.
Are you a fan?
Big fan.
That's the
Very nice.
one where the Kevin Bacon's out in the desert, right?
You know,
it's
I realize
one
the holidays
with
are, you know, I realize Christmas is over, but you could at least still entertain.
It's the one where the
spirit.
dude from Justified teams
Yeah.
up with the dude from Game of Thrones,
Mhm.
and they killed the worm out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, that stuff.
I'm just saying, man, I've got a copy of Dune, the book, and there's nothing saying we can't start a book club where we read a chapter and look at each other through Zoom.
My God, that'd be
I see
amazing.
the glow coming from you.
You'd regret that very quickly. I'm pretty sure.
No, we had a good Christmas. We're a very practical type of family. So Raj got me a new laptop, which I need for school because mine's about 5 years old and doesn't want to live without the battery charger being hooked up, which makes it not a laptop, makes it a desktop. So I got a new computer, which was wonderful. I'm really enjoying it. And I got a very nice new North Face jacket, which is probably too wintry for the climate that we have here. But you know, on the several days out of the year that it does get cold, it is very comfy, very warm, and has fur around the top. So I feel like a little bit of an Eskimo, which makes me happy. Yeah, even though it's not white, I will reenact the Tauntaun scene with the leftover wrapping paper roll with my fuzzy jacket on from time to time, just to relive that moment of my childhood. But no,
Speaking of books and tauntauns, I'm reading The Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view right now, which is where they take the movies and they tell the story from other people's points of views at different times in the movie.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I now feel sorry for the Wampa that attacked Luke.
Dude was just trying to live his best life. Here comes this motherfucker.
He was, and those damn rebels came and they took over his caves and killed his family, and he's just looking for a little revenge.
You know, that's just poor guy.
Right?
But the one thing I didn't get is I didn't get any toys. You know, I didn't get any action figures. I didn't get any play sets. I did get a really cool bathrobe from a friend of mine that I'm wearing right now, and it's a Green Ranger bathrobe. So
Nice.
that counts. That's really cool. But I can remember, you know, being a kid and walking out from the, you know, and I had a very privileged childhood, I should say. Let's start that off. But I remember walking out and seeing just all of these cool presents under the tree, just these insane things that would just light up. And, you know, Santa came, and, you know, when you're a little bit older, just like, no, Dad's just awesome. And I'm curious, and especially since this is kind of the end of the month, and it was a light week in Comic World, if you guys would be cool about just kind of talking about some of our favorite childhood memories of really cool stuff that we got for Christmas, like what some of your
yeah, I think we're good with that, since it's also our chaos topic.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you shit.
See,
yeah, no,
putting in work, trying to make it feel like it was natural, like it was just a free story. And Craig's like, "No, motherfucker, you got a script."
Oh, just
Can't-
messing with you.
can't
Finally get you to accept the chaos, and then I'm going to take it out and rip it out from underneath you.
I know, right?
Just make it more chaotic.
Well, since you're making the chaos, why don't you kick us off and tell us about something cool? And you know, we'll do maybe 2, maybe 3 toys, depending on how much time we have, how much we got. But I'm curious to hear what some of these things were.
As you can figure, mine's probably going to be very
Star Trek,
Star Wars heavy, but in 1977, a little movie came out, and they started putting out toys that year. And that first Christmas post Star Wars, I got the 12-inch Luke Skywalker, basically Ken doll, that it was amazing. And that was between that and they have these vans, like not shoes, but van as in toy cars that had ripcords in them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pull them and they would kind of drive by themselves. That same year, I got a Star Wars ripcord van. And man, was little 6-year-old Craig super happy for that.
What? So when you say it was Star Wars theme, was it a particular character or?
Yeah, so they actually had two of the vans. One was a light side van, and one was a dark side van.
Mm-hmm.
So one was obviously painted with all the good guys. So it had Luke and Han and Leia and the droids. And then the other one had Vader and some stormtroopers and so forth, Death Star on it. And I got the light side and my brother got the dark side. Just as I got the Luke Skywalker, he got the Darth Vader. So maybe tells you a little bit about what my parents thought about me and my brother.
Which
who was the good one and he was the bad one.
I got to ask, which brother, having met both of your brothers?
John.
Oh, that tracks. Yeah. Well, what about you, Mr. Matt?
The first toys I remember getting were also Star Wars. I had to, of course, mine were I had the 4-inch, when the 4-inch toys came out. I got some of those, and I remember my mother's special ordering the Emperor, because you couldn't get the Emperor in stores. You had to send off for that one. So that was the first collection, I guess you would say, like a certain theme of toys that I remember getting. Second to that would be the first time I remember getting like a quote big toy was when I got Castle Grayskull, and me and my brother actually got Castle Grayskull as a shared toy. That was for both of us. We were amazed because we had not had anything like that before. We thought Castle Grayskull was like the coolest thing ever.
Nice.
It definitely was one of the coolest toys of that era.
Yeah.
How big was that thing?
Well, when you're a kid, it feels like you could practically crawl inside of it. But, when you go back and look at it now, it's about the size of a small suitcase. Now, when I say suitcase, what I mean is briefcase.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, did that actually come with any action figures, or was it kind of just by itself and you had to?
No, it didn't come with any action figures. They broke all that stuff up, man. They want your money.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember any of the play sets coming with toys with action figures.
No.
If I remember, like there was always. Oh, well, maybe this is a good way to lead into mine. So the first, my first big like quote unquote toy moment was a play set. But it was actually, if I remember right, it was somewhere either in 1991 or 1992. And I think I've spoke about it a little bit before because it was like the toy and the play set that I carried with me through all of my childhood. And that was none other than the Sherwood Forest play set from the movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring American treasure Kevin Costner.
I'm sorry. I think you meant the Ewok playset.
I was going to go there because it wasn't until years later that I found out that this was actually I think there's an industry term for it, but it's a repurposed design, and it was the Ewok Forest playset. And not only did they just carried the design over from that, but they also, I want to say in the original Star Wars line, they had the guy who took care of the Rancor, and I don't know what his name was. Craig probably did.
Rancor Keeper.
Oh, Rancor. Okay, that
was the name of his action figure.
He grew into his job. Look at that. His parents had a plan. The plan worked.
Yes. Yes.
But they repurposed that mold as well, and they used it for Friar Tuck. And the playset came with Friar Tuck based off the Rain Corps Keeper. And I mean, this thing was cool. And kind of like Matt said, for little Caleb, who I guess in 91, I would have been 5, maybe 6, when I got this toy, but it just seemed like it was huge. I mean, the thing was half the size that I was.
Let me tell you the age difference between us. I saw that movie in the movie theater with my first wife, and we were already married.
Damn. And I see here I was just toddling around. I was born in 87. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so you get this set, and it's all the toy. Like it's larger than life. It's got the 3 trees, the canopy, the net that you can catch stuff in. In addition, my mom, being, because Christmas is like her favorite time of year, she got me the little rolling. They came, like, there was another set, and it was this little rolling, basically battering ram from the movie that they showed in there, and the main log swung, and so you could have this thing where you knocked down doors and stuff with it if you got the castle, which I didn't get the castle, but that's okay because I got this other cool stuff. But like that piece was so big, and I was such a, like a lot of kids, I had multiple interests, right? Like I had like Star Wars, Gargoyles, G.I. Joe, like that. It always, like, it wasn't just Robin Hood stuff. It carried through, and it became the forest hub for everything in my little toy adventures as I spread out all my toys across the bedroom. And it was just, like, when I think about my childhood, that is one of the most memorable things that I ever got. And it's still floating around my parents somewhere. Pieces are definitely missing, but no, it was just cool. And what I loved about it is one of the trees was hollow. And so it had this little arch thing. And so when you needed to escape, you threw your action figure into it, and he fell down and he could escape through the bottom. And so in that sense, it was probably one of the first interactive things that I felt was, for me, it felt like I was playing with grown up big kid toys instead of, baby stuff, quote unquote, because I was 5, right? Like I was, in that weird age when, blocks and coloring and, Sesame Street were supposed to be what you did. They were the safe things. And now I'm watching, this Kevin Costner movie that I fell in love with, which has 2 of the, well, I will make a stand for Kevin Costner. I think the dude's a treasure. I love that guy. Only made like 1 bad movie that I know of. But it also had Alan Rickman, who I didn't realize was the actual hero of that story until much, much later. But yeah, and it's swords and it's blood and it's love and it's sex and it's violence. And to get to reenact those moments just in your bedroom as a kid, with which also my first introduction to Morgan Freeman, and the talent that guy would be, just yeah, I still love thinking about that thing. I pulled up a picture of it, and apparently, if Caleb had been a better, like, toddling capitalist, I would have left it in the box, because apparently that thing goes for money now, like not insignificant sums.
Well, I mean, that can be said about any of the toys we're going to talk about, probably.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who in the hell's in the market for a Kevin Costner Robin Hood toy set? Who are these people?
People that want to repurpose it for their Ewok toy set.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, there is a booming and vibrant Prince of Thieves underground fan club. I'm certain of it. But no, I mean, it's just because it was a cool kid, and that's the thing with us. Like, so much of us is what makes us the type of nerds that we are, the type of geek folk, is nostalgia. And people with a certain amount of disposable income will buy the toys from their childhood and just to stick it on a shelf somewhere and look at it and save it.
When you're 18, your parents get rid of all of your toys. When you're 30, you spend the rest of your life trying to buy those toys back.
Right.
Yeah.
So
now I got to say, as a credit to my mom, they didn't get rid of any of our toys.
nice.
Like I still get pictures of my nephew, my sister's son, going to Nana and Pop Pops, and the dude is playing with toys that I got when I was his age. Like, they're still there.
Awesome.
And for the most part, fairly good shape. So
Yeah, mine got traded to pay off a meth dealer. So That tells you the different lifestyles we had.
The fact that that's not an Arkansas story is the most surprising element of that. Well, what are some other cool stuff you got, Craig?
So my next one actually is not a Star Wars toy, believe it or not. But about 1979 Christmas, my parents had already been divorced, and you're young and you learn you can kind of play that thing against one parent to the other for Christmas.
Right.
And I talked my dad into getting me an Atari 2600. Now, this, I don't know if you guys are really aware of how much this changed everything.
Oh, yeah.
The Atari 2600 was such a huge deal to pop culture in general. Arcades were really just starting to make their mark on the world, and now you could play as long as you wanted to at home, and it didn't cost you a quarter every time. It was huge. Now the side note to that is my mom had read somewhere that if you played it on your color TV, it would leave the imprint on your TV.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so we were only allowed to play our Atari on a little 12-inch black and white in our bedroom. So,
yeah. Yeah, I remember that. You'd have designated Atari TVs. I remember that. I never had an Atari as a kid, but I knew others that did. And everybody had their designated Atari TV, which was always the crappiest TV in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know if either of you were old enough to remember the Atari 2600 and what it meant for, gaming future and all of that. I know probably Nintendo was more Caleb's time for sure.
Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of this first, introduction to the home gaming systems. There had been Pong a few years before that. And even going back before I got my Atari 2600, my uncle had been stationed in Okinawa, and he came back with an Atari. And so, because they were released overseas before they were released in America. And he came back and, we spent hours playing Combat before I even knew what Combat was. That was probably around 1977 or so. And then, I finally got mine around 1979, 1980. And, just a toy that took up hours upon hours upon hours of my childhood. And, that probably until the Nintendo came out, and I think the Nintendo came out in 84, 85, somewhere around there. It was just about, there were some other gaming systems. There was a Coleco and an Intellivision, but none of them had the traction that the Atari 2600 did.
So I gotta ask, what was quote unquote your Atari game? We talking Millipede? What we got?
Asteroids. Yeah, my buddy and I got to where we would just sit there. I'd go over to his house because his parents would let him play on the color TV. And, the first time I played at his house, I was like, wait, the asteroids have color to them? They're not just shades of gray. But his parents would let him play on the big TV, and they had one of those 1980s TVs that were, had the speakers on the sides and it sat on the floor. And we would sit there and play Asteroids till we would, we'd roll the score. We'd have to pass the joystick back and forth because our thumbs would get sore.
Yeah.
But that, and I always loved Pitfall and Pitfall 2.
Yeah.
Those were two of my favorite games ever, and would still play them if I had access to them.
Well, you should keep your eye out because what's been really cool over the past few years, and you know, as much shit as we like to give this group of people, it's largely because of the hipsters. You know, inevitably the hipsters will end up being the ones that save us all. They now sell like these little Atari games that you can hook up to your television, and like they're these little boxes, and they come with a little joystick. You can pick them up for really, really cheap. I mean, maybe $20.
So going off of that, a few years ago, a company actually bought the rights to Atari,
Mm-hmm.
and they had an Indiegogo deal going on, and I bought one system from them, and it came with 100 Atari games loaded on it.
Yeah.
And I actually got that Christmas Eve this year.
Oh, nice.
It showed up in the mail this year. It has both the old-fashioned joystick and it has a modern controller for it. And supposedly you can get on the actual internet and play different kinds of games besides just the Atari games, but they're going to be adding more games to their library as time goes by. So kind of excited to have that. I hope they get the rights to some of the third-party vendors' games so that you can get King Kong, Donkey Kong, and some of those other games.
That's awesome. That is, yeah, that's cool. All right, Matt, batters up. Wow us.
The last toys that I can remember getting before I made a full transition into comic books was I was into Transformers as a kid, but specifically the last toys I remember getting were the Transformers Dinobots.
Yeah, Grimlock.
I loved Dinobots because, as most little boys do, I loved dinosaurs. So all of a sudden you have dinosaurs that are Transformers, and it was pure magic. It obviously made absolutely no sense whatsoever for it to exist, other than to sell to children. But the Dinobots, I mean, Grimlock, I absolutely loved Grimlock in the cartoons as a kid. He was like completely awesome in my eyes. So those were the last toys I remember getting. I didn't get very many of those because Transformers were, quote, very expensive, as I was reminded over and over again. And my brother wasn't very good at transforming Transformers, so he would break them all the time. So that was the last bit of toys I remember getting that I was like super excited about. Man. And very quickly thereafter, and at that time, I was starting to transition my interest more into comic books anyway. And thereafter, I pretty much just went full in comic books and didn't want to waste my toy opportunities, my gift opportunity on toys anymore. I wanted comic book and comic book related things.
Craig, did you hear the vitriol? There was like a little bit of venom in Matt's voice there. I think he's still holding a grudge against his brother.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I go over his house today. I make it a point to break things.
And just tell him that mom and dad aren't going to replace it.
Yeah, that's right. Mostly his emotions.
Yeah, my little brother, there's a little toy graveyard from all of my old toys that he inherited and destroyed. Little bastard. I love him. For me. So my next one is kind of in the same vein as Craig in the sense that it's instant electronics, but it's not necessarily a quote unquote toy per se, but it was a significant moment in my life, and it really helped make me. It's a thing that helped make me who I am. I'm a firm believer in that. But really, what it was the gift of freedom as delivered by my mother on Christmas morning. Do you all remember when the first portable CD players came out?
Oh yeah,
I do.
That was mine. Like that,
they skipped all over the place and
couldn't walk around with the thing.
Yep, you had to keep it. You had to keep it level. You had to hold it in your hands like it was a precious piece of machinery, or find some place to sit down and plug your headphones in so you didn't touch it. But no, one Christmas I got I want to say it was a Sony portable CD player. It was blue and silver. She got me that and like this 50, like this book, like it was like a 50 CD holder. that was meant to be for me to like. These things were supposed to, make your life convenient, but the thing was the size of, like Matt said, a briefcase. So anywhere you went, you had to carry this basically this giant bag with you to hold all of your music and your CD player and your headphones and everything else. So it wasn't in that sense, but you didn't need a plug-in. I could roll out, listen to the music I wanted to in like on the school bus, in like the mall when we went, in the car with my parents as they listened to like fucking Toby Keith or some shit, and I didn't want to hear that, so I'd throw in my headphones and my portable CD player.
That was my first CD player in a car.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a more useless item than a portable CD player on a school bus.
Oh, great. it was awesome. Every song was a remix.
I mean, there's no way I would get through. I could get through anything. It would just eventually put up the little E for error on the screen because it would not play on a school bus. That's how that would work. I was still using tape players on the school bus.
Yeah, I used tape players because they didn't skip as much.
I didn't. I remember having a tape player.
Oh God!
But I remember also when they sold cassette tapes.
Yeah.
At the Walmarts, but they quickly got phased out. I remember when they phased out cassettes from like Walmart, and it was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I remember 8-tracks. So
yeah, the world was coming to an end for that. But no, so yeah, thanks to my mom, I got that. Now the hardest part about that was letting my mom, or getting my mom to let me buy the music that I wanted, which was extremely difficult because she was not having any of the music that I was interested in. And one Christmas, I asked for a Crom CD, a Marilyn Manson CD, a Rob Zombie CD, and I think a Metallica CD, because there was a year where all three of those bands released things. She got me 98 Degrees. and keep in mind, this is the same one. The woman that bought me a 98 Degrees album is also the same woman that had the audacity to be shocked when I told her I was gay. So
I was going to say, but
this is her fault. But yeah, I got 98 Degrees. Was not happy about
Damn.
I quickly reached out and had friends donate to me their music collections because they had better offerings. And then we learned how to burn CDs, and that opened up a whole new world. Yeah.
98 Degrees.
I know, right? Not even she gave me the bootleg boy band. Not even like Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. If she was going to get me that, she could have at least like got me the popular crappy music. But I got 98 Degrees.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Offended. Oh, I'm still offended. Gonna put her in a home someday. All right, Craig. Next up, buddy. You got one more for us?
Yeah, I got one more. Around about that same time, late 70s, maybe 1980, Kenner came out with the Death Star playset, which was this absolutely amazing 4-story toy playset for my action figures that had an elevator, it had a monster and a pit for the trash compactor, it had a giant turbo laser to blow up Alderaan if I wanted to. It was amazing. And I wish I still had that to play with today.
I remember that. I, of course, never had that one, but yeah, that was like a portable wonderland for a kid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it had cardboard siding on it to make the interior panels. So each level had a different kind of action scene or, whatever. And then the foam pieces that were the trash compactor pieces. It was the only way to get the trash compactor monster action figure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The worm?
You could reenact half of Star Wars with that one toy.
Yeah. I remember that.
You had a couple of action figures in that toy. It was half of Star Wars.
I remember going to a kid's house. He had not only that, but he had something I didn't know existed as a kid until I saw it in his home. And that was the
first edition Star Wars Lego set.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, you are truly loved.
I never got the Legos. I don't know. I really wasn't into Legos, but I'd play with my friends' Lego sets or whatever. But yeah,
Shit, I was like I loved Legos, but I never got any of the Lego sets based off of like popular TV or cartoons. I would get all
like the NASA one.
Yeah, I got some of those. Some of the
Build the house.
Well, I got the houses, the islands, like the different seascapes and stuff like that, little kits, which you build one time and then you break them all down and you throw them into a big bucket, and then you just build random spaceships out of them forever.
Right.
That I had those were always mine, but like I always got Legos. Like that was always a big Christmas thing.
Oh yeah, no, I had Lincoln Logs.
I had Lincoln Logs as well.
Had they even invented plastic by the time you guys were? And never mind.
Yes, they had.
That was funny.
I believe plastic was invented in the 40s to account for the lack of steel.
I had Lincoln Logs. I had somebody's old hand-me-down erector set. And then what was those toys that was the sticks? It was the sticks.
Oh,
is that what those were? And you connect them to the little spot.
Yeah,
I cannot
they have the wheel, and you can shove the sticks in on the side or in the ends of it.
Yeah, it looked like a little snowflake.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But no, Legos were too expensive. We didn't get those.
Yeah.
So my little brother, who's 10 years younger than me, by that time they had this thing called Bionicle, which is like Legos on Michael Bay meth. Like you would buy these kits and they're these giant like mech warrior type things, and they're complete with the fact that there was like a cartoon for them on television. But those things, the design was cool. I have no idea if they were cool, but the designs were. Did you guys ever see any of those?
Yeah, I was grown by the time those came out, and I had two girls that were not interested in building block sets. Not that I wouldn't have got them for them if they were, but they just weren't interested in building block sets.
Yeah. Well, Matt, what about you? You got one more for us, buddy?
Beyond the Dinobots is when I made a full transition into my interest as a kid, went into comic books. So every year at Christmas, I wanted comic book centralized themed gifts. So I was always looking forward to my newest Wolverine shirt. Mm-hmm. I've gone back and looked up some of those shirts on eBay, and people are trying to sell those for hundreds of dollars. Interestingly enough, I was always looking forward to my new X-Men shirt as a kid. And I used to get the J.C. Penney's Marvel gift box. I got several of those throughout the years. And it was just a random collection of Marvel comic books in one. I mean, I'm going to say you probably got 10 comic books in this one little box. And 90% of the comic books in there were completely discardable, in my opinion. However, I struck gold and got the Wolverine monthly series #1 in one of them.
Oh yeah,
I felt like I won the lottery when I got that thing. I couldn't believe it was in there next to Sensational She-Hulk #3. I was like,
first appearance of Patch.
Yeah. I mean, I was amazed that was in there. But,
nice.
But the biggest thing you could ever get me as a kid, once I'd made this transition, was a gift certificate to the best place on earth, the comic book store. That was the best thing you could get a young Matt Trogdon. Here's your $50 gift certificate to the comic book store. There's no better place on earth to me than that. And that was
$50 in comics back then.
I was going to say
amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that is the only way I could buy comics off the wall. That's how I got the Wolverine Limited series, the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont series. That's how I got that, was those gift certificates that I would get for Christmas and my birthday. That's how I built those up.
Nice.
And those were like, but you walk in there with that and it's like,
It's like sensory overload. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? Where do I begin?
Well,
You've got
and
this
back
$50.
then you could go in and get a year's worth of comics off the wall.
Well, not the local purveyor. He was very proud of his books. So
Was he?
paid. Oh yes, you paid a premium
Yeah.
for him. But he's,
Gotcha.
it's like the old saying. Why are you playing this game? It's crooked. It's the only game in town.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's awesome.
All right. I got a question for you. What was the worst Batman movie ever made?
Batman and Robin.
Close. Arguably that I think it's the toss up between that and the one I'm thinking of.
Batman Forever.
Batman Forever is the one I was thinking of. Val Kilmer's Batman, not bad, good Batman. Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. I can see the casting. Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Jim Carrey he was a big deal. Nicole Kidman, of course, was in there. Chris O'Donnell. Michael Gough as Alfred. Now that's a gem. That you lock that in. That's good forever. But the movie in and of itself was abhorrent, right? Like it was bad. It has a special place in my heart because of where it existed in my childhood, but objectively not a great film. Right?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
However, there were some amazing toys that spun out of that movie. Some incredible toys spun out of that movie. And I had almost all of them. The Batmobile and the Batplane, both of those things looked like they were designed by Mark Silvestri. I mean, just jagged pointed ends everywhere. Curves, the weird cybernetic lines running all out of every nook and cranny in those things. They shot missiles out of places that you didn't know that they had missiles. The Batmobile actually
did it lose its wheel?
And then Robin got away.
Yes.
But no. So it had this thing where you actually pushed a button and like the engine components lit up blue to kind of do this day glow thing to remind you of the movie. And like I said, everything was just a jagged point. The Batplane, just to make you feel like you were coinciding with the film, the wings would actually break off and it would turn into the Bat submarine. And then there was like a little ejector portion of it that was connected to the rocket that turned into like a snow machine rocket bobsled thing. I mean, these were like they were kind of the same with Transformers in a way, not to the intricacy or the extent of those things, but you could adapt your toy to whatever kind of scenario. And of course, all the action figures that came with them, getting stacked up on the Robin Hood playset as they fought their way through all the things. But like, I loved those toys as a kid, just for the sheer fact that you could break them and you could put them back together. And it made it like the wings would fold down on the bat plane, like 90 degrees, and turn into this giant like bat sled, or bat snowmobile. It was just, it also served to be a battle axe if you wanted to tie a stick to it, which was fun, and I did. Like they were just such cool toys, just dynamic in the way that you could play for them. They were larger than life. They were bright. They're everything that we think is bad about the movie. Actually worked its way into being some really fun, at least from my child eyes, toys. But again, actually, now that I think about it, I think Craig might be right. I think Batman and Robin is the worst movie. With Batman Forever coming in a close second, but the Jim Carrey Riddler doll was cool. I'll die on that hill. It looked good.
I mean, you're debating semantics when you talk about which of those two movies is worse.
I wonder, does Matt have a hardline answer to that question? Because if anybody has a hardline answer, I feel like it's Matt.
There's no, you can't measure those two things against each other. They're so low on the totem pole. There's no bottom to hit. And the only argument I think you could make is that the title of the movie itself, Batman Forever, what the fuck does that even mean? It means you're out of fucking ideas and you just pasted some bullshit. Batman Forever. What?
Batman.
They were definitely out of ideas.
Batman Can't Stop, Won't Stop. It was bad. It was bad. But fun toys. Like I said, fun toys.
I should have answered Batman versus Superman, but I knew that wasn't the answer you were going for.
Well, at least Batman v Superman has like things that are nice to look at.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, these other movies, I mean, they're just abhorrent and they hurt the eye. And you got the
They're
Bat
offensive
credit
to all of
card.
Matt's sin.
It's awful.
Yeah, the Bat credit card. I forgot about that.
I mean, you have the laundry scene. Laundry.
Yeah.
This is like who's
Now,
making
the
the
opening-
decisions over there?
The opening scene of that movie where you see all the like cyberpunk Gotham kids who are like, they have the weird day glow things sticking out of them and it looks like a rave gone wrong. I thought that part was cool. Like, it was a cool design, but it didn't lead into a good part of the movie by any means. But there were some cool visual elements, but overall not. Bad times. I don't know who made those decisions, but they shouldn't have. So, oh well, we'll get over it.
Jerry Bruckheimer.
Probably so. But dude, just countless hours and hours and hours of playing with the Batman toys that spun out of that movie. Because I think
that's awesome.
96, I want to say. When that popped out, and so that was like prime little boy action figure age for me, and so I got a ton of those, and that might, just the design of those toys might be what led me to actually like Mark Silvestri, which is a big thing, because they were very, like I said,
if you are giving the movie Batman Forever credit for you liking Mark Silvestri's art. No. We've got a problem here.
No, not the movie at all. Not the movie at all. The toys, which were all
semantics,
silver, edgy. And Silvestri, that might have been when did Silvestri draw?
You're just going to keep digging yourself into a deeper hole here.
Oh no, I'm doing this on purpose. I know it's like I can see that one vein in your temple.
That one vein.
This is not right. Mark Silvestri has nothing to do with that dumpster fire train wreck of a cinematic experience that did not happen long enough ago, I should say.
I mean, but it was 90s. Like it was peak 90s.
That's no excuse for that dumpster fire of the movie.
Oh, the glory of the 90s is entrenched in that. So bad. It was so bad. All right, so I'm glad you guys got some cool toys as a kid. I'm glad I got some cool toys, some great memories all around. And really, I hope everybody who both you guys, as you said you did, and everybody at home listening to the show, I hope they made some good memories this Christmas, or this Hanukkah if you celebrate that, or this Kwanzaa if you celebrate that. I hope you got some cool stuff. I hope you gave some cool stuff. And more so, I hope you found some joy in the end of what has been a fucking bad year. And that's what I hope. I hope everybody listened to that. And as we move forward, happy New Year's, happy pre-New Year's. And I really hope everyone has a better year next year. I know we will. And we're going to start that off in my favorite way. We are going to start off by having a better new year by doing what has become my favorite part of this show every year. And we're changing things up a little bit, but that's going to be our end of the year kind of review show that we do. In the past, we've called them the Golden Geekeries, but that's just, that's the Batman Forever of names. So we're not going to call it that. Don't know what we're going to call it now, but you guys existed in 2020. You know that comics took a big pause for a little bit when the Rona hit. And so instead of going through this giant list of who we think was the best and of the best of what genre, what was the best book, what was the best artist, what, all the semantics of it, we got together and said, hey, you know what might be better? Just coming up with each of us, each of our own personal top 10 lists. And it can be, if your favorite artist was on a book, that can be your number 2 book, just solely for the fact that it had the best art.
Don't start throwing rules out now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not throwing rules out. It's not a rule. It's purely not lacking rule. We're just coming up with top 10 lists. I'm just kind of explaining.
I'm totally messing with you, dude. Just ignore me and continue on.
Throwing monkey wrenches and shit. But that's going to come up in the next, probably the 2nd or 3rd week of January. We haven't set a date yet, but we're coming up with our list. We would love it if you folks listening at home came up with your own lists, threw them out there before or after the show. Rumor has it we might have a friend stopping by to be on this show with us, which is going to be a lot of fun. We've just got to get all that lined up. So get ready for that. End of the year lists are some of my favorite. They're cool. My list is going to be different than Matt's list, who's going to be different than Craig's list. Not that Craig's list, but a different Craig's list.
Here's a spoiler. Saga will not be on any of our lists this year.
That's true. That is.
But Immortal Hulk very much will be.
Do you think that there'll be a triad with that? Is there going to be a trifecta? Is it going to hit all lists? Stay tuned. Who can say? It's gonna be.
Who can say? Anybody that's read a comic book in 2020
and listen to our show. But all right, yeah. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, come join us. Come tell us what your favorite moments of this Christmas were. Your favorite books of the year on our Facebook page. All you got to do is search for it. It's right there. We would love it if you did that. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're at both of those. If you got an email, maybe you want to send us our list. Maybe you want to send us your list and have us proofread it for you to let you know all the bad things that are on it that you just need to take off. You can fire that email over to southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And we'll check it out. We will judge you based on the list that you send us, and we'll let you know how you stand, which can be scary and rightly so. Before we get to the books that are coming out this next week, I want to send a shout out to our buddy Brian Newberry. Today is his birthday as we record this. He comments quite often. He's a good dude. He's been on the show before. So just shout out to that guy. And also, taking some editorial privilege here, shout out and happy birthday to my husband. Roger turned 29 today and is nice enough to let me spend part of his birthday hanging out with you guys. So happy birthday, baby. I love you. And, I'll be downstairs in like 5 minutes. All right. So now that that's out of the way, let's get to what is coming out on this next New Comic Book Day. Each week we try to tell folks at home some books that are about to hit the shelves. We don't know if they're going to be good. They probably will be. We hope they are. We tend to have pretty good luck with this, but it's always fun. So we'll start with Craig. What book is coming out this next week that you think is going to be awesome?
This one is going to surprise both of you, I'm sure. Ghost Rider Annual #1.
Holy shit. Who's
What the fuck are you talking about? Somebody check his temperature.
This has Howard Mackey, Javier Saltares, and Ryan Stegman on it. And to have Howard Mackey and Javier Saltares writing and drawing a Ghost Rider book again, it just does my heart good. So I am excited for this one-off book that is not going to be interrupting a series because there's not a Ghost Rider series right now.
Who is this?
I can read this and enjoy it without it screwing up the continuity that I've been reading. So,
Jesus Christ, Body Snatchers is real.
My question, how are you going to have an annual when you don't have a book?
Yeah, I don't know why they're just not calling it King Conan Ghost Rider #1.
See, that was Conan. That was Craig's very real bitch about the Moon Knight annual that came out. He's like, "There's not even an ongoing series. This shouldn't be in existence."
Right?
Yeah, but it didn't have Howard Mackey and Javier Saltares on.
So your principles are as fluid as the water in the lakes in this great state.
I mean, depending on the comic book and the creative team, yes.
They're weak, they're malleable, and they'll just run in any direction that you want them to. That's what you're telling us about your principles.
It also helped that there's almost nothing coming out this week.
No justification won't do.
But did you hear me? It's Howard Mackie and Javier Saltera's doing Ghost Rider again.
That
Yes,
part,
I heard all those things.
that part is
Yeah.
pretty cool. All right, Matt, what's hitting the shelf for you this week, brother?
Well, I'm really looking forward to this book by Hermes Press called Ditko Shrugged: Uncompromising Life of the Artist. This is the first in-depth biography of Steve Ditko. It's actually been endorsed by the Ditko family.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to read this book, and one day I very much will. I'll go ahead and say I'm not buying it this coming week because it's a $50 book, but I'm going to give that some time, let that price come down a little bit, find it on a discount at some point, and then I'll definitely be reading this. This fits definitely within my wheelhouse of history, biography, and comic books. 3 subject matters that I very much enjoy more than many.
And it does not have a ghost house in it. So
I don't think so.
if it did, would it change your view of it?
Very much so.
I was checking to see how fluid Matt's principles were.
So, Matt, in connection with that book, there is another book that you should keep your eye out. It's not out quite yet, but it's by our friend Zach Crucy. It's being published by Mississippi Press, but it's called Ditko and the Search for a New Liberal Identity. It's in the same vein. He's a doctor of literature who just wrote this amazing book that focuses on Ditko and kind of his personal philosophies and like this the power of positive thinking kind of era that he came into that helped sculpt his characters like Doctor Strange and all of the world that he built. So if you're looking for that, I think it's a little bit more inexpensive. But if you're looking for a book like that is in the same vein as Ditko Shrugged while you're waiting on that 50% price tag to come down, you might check that out. I think you'd enjoy it.
Okay.
It's good stuff. I'll send you a link. Next week, I think that folks should take a chance on this new book by a little publisher. I probably don't talk about them very often. You may have not heard of them, but it's from Vault Comics. Those guys. I haven't been foisting praise on them all year or anything, but this is actually an OGN. It is called Heist or How to Steal a Planet. It's a trade paperback coming out. It is by Paul Tobin and Arjuna Susini, excuse me, I'm sorry. It is coming out December 30th. It's a planet heist. The planet is called Heist. It's the cutthroat capital of the entire Nearing system, home to billions of the worst men and women in the galaxy. The Pan-Galactic government has no idea what to do with the planet, but con man Glaine Freld and his band of thieves know exactly what to do with the heist. They're going to steal it. They're stealing a planet.
If you name your planet Heist,
Yeah.
you are asking for it to be stolen.
I feel
kind of
you
like
deserve to
naming
lose all your belongings.
right.
Yeah, it's kind of like naming your alley Crime Alley. You deserve to have the 2 most influential people in your city gunned down in that alley.
Oh, well, who goes to Crime Alley and for what purpose? Like, there wasn't a better movie. Anyway, this particular book, it pitches itself as the Ocean's 11 in space. So I'm looking forward to it. I like Vault. I like what they're doing. So I'm going to check that out. So,
I mean, Crime Alley was, to be fair, named after Albert Crime, one of the architects of Gotham City. So, something fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
That guy. All right. So go pick up these and more. Have a safe and happy New Year's. Don't drink and drive. Wear a mask wherever you go. And just, try to make 2021 a little bit better as much as possible than 2020. And we will catch you all next year. It's weird to say that. And Jerry, I'm sure, is going to come up with the I haven't seen you since last year joke. That's his favorite thing in the world. So be looking out for those. So anyway, while you're doing all those things, you're checking out new comics, you're listening to shows, maybe you're catching up on stuff. Maybe you're watching Wonder Woman and recoiling for that, as some people tend to be doing. Go forth and, love some comics.
Woo!
Last woo of 2020.
That was quite a sign off. Yeah, you're watching Wonder Woman 84 and recoiling. Have a nice day. That was quite the sign off there. Shit on Wonder Woman 84 real quick, and then
I actually liked Wonder Woman 84, but
oh god,
I'm sorry.